You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands, with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. Today we have with us a confession, a mentor, and probably both a marketing grandfather. So, the current CMO of Bajaj Auto, Mr. Narayan Sundararaman. And as I introduce him, I want to put one caveat on the table that if you heard anything wrong about marketing that we've said, half of it is completely his fault. So you know who to go after for this.
And like all things in marketing, you won't know which half.
But the other half goes to Sudeep. So
Yeah, I guess then it's complete.
the right part goes to me. So welcome, Narayan.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and thank you for indicating that I'm the grandfather here. I was telling you guys earlier. Nowadays, I do feel like that. I mean, I do feel very old. You often have new people coming into marketing, and I was having a conversation with one of them, and this person sort of let it slip that I need to go back home. It's my mom's birthday. And I was like, oh, okay, mom's birthday, good. Oh, no, it's a milestone birthday. She just turned 50. I was like, dude, okay.
That's how long you've been doing marketing, though.
Thanks, Sharan. Thank you so much.
I think Sharan is now testing the boundaries of how far he can push you on the age side.
Correct.
We will let him have
swiftly
this
move
one.
on.
Yes, we should. Okay, excellent. So before we move further, Narayan, if you could just, for our listeners, summarize some of the stints that you've had, various things that you've done in marketing, and then we will dive deeper into some of them.
Yeah, sure. So look, I've been around the block and being circles around the block for a fairly long period of time. So actually, I started my career not as a marketer. I actually started my career as a banker. So after business school, like many people then and maybe even now, I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do. So I stumbled into banking. And I always sort of was undecided, whether to go the marketing or the finance way. I had a background in economics and I was fairly deeply interested in it. So I thought, okay, banking, finance, those kind of things. And this is way back, 1994. I was there for about 9 months and I didn't like it at all. So the first sort of, you guys have listed out saying, okay, tell us something that'll be of tip to a lot of people. I think that's where I realized that, if your heart's not into something, then there's no point just doing it for the money. And I do understand that for a lot of people, working for money is very important. I'm not sort of deriding that, but, it needs to be a lot of heart as well. And my heart was just not in it. So the best part about that stint was I knew what I didn't want to do, right? It sort of ruled out a lot of options that were, otherwise pretty appealing. Post that, I joined ITC. Back then, it was mostly a cigarette company. And that's where I spent about 5 years. And I think that gave me my first sort of, I would say, learning in the field of consumers, etc., which was, it made me go and see large parts of, small town India and rural India. And I grew up in Delhi. I went to school, college there. I was always a city boy. So for me, this was like a, very different world. So that was hugely, I would say, it was a learning moment, several learning moments. And of course, ITC was great because it had all these wonderful sort of ways of working, systems. It had a particularly interesting culture where everybody really worked with a lot of passion and a lot of interest. Brought themselves to work every day in that manner. So that was great. But then I sort of had enough of just selling cigarettes, and cigarettes was also going dark. So I wanted something new, and I was deeply interested in the food industry, which is when I moved through a couple of stints, and I finally landed at Cadbury, which is where I also met the two of you. So I stayed with Cadbury, and then it became Kraft Foods, and then Mondelez for about 15 years. And over the course of that entire journey, I've done everything from market research to media buying to brand management, heading marketing, running a category, launching new brands, thinking of new brands, making mistakes. I think I should also say that one of the um, certainly amongst all achievements, one must also say that there are several failures from what I've learned, and that all happened during that stint. It happened subsequently as well. So it's not that life is all about only all the things that go well.
Yeah.
So a lot of learning from there. I worked in India. I worked across geographies. I worked across categories. I worked in different cultures. Worked in Southeast Asia. I worked in developed markets, etc. So it was a wonderfully fulfilling and stimulating journey. I left Mondelez, I think, in 2015. And then I took a break for about a year. And then I was in the world of media. I was in Star as the business head for Star Plus, which was a very exciting journey in itself, because media is, I mean, if you think consumer products are fast moving, you got to see media. Right? So that's all that I would say. It was, I mean, every day, it was literally working every day, and then you start afresh. So that was that stint. And then for the last 5 years, I've been in the world of automobiles, and more specifically two-wheelers and motorcycles, and all the disruption that's we would have all read in the newspaper about various things, whether it is electric or whether it is new brands, revival of old brands, all of that. I'm in the thick of all of it. And so that's been my journey. I've done stints in marketing, I've stints in business, and many things.
Nice. That sounds like a fairly varied experience.
Grandfather, you guys said.
I said,
remember.
I said varied. He said grandfather.
I shall not forget.
The reason I said varied, Narayan, was because we would want to pick up excerpts from each one of your stints and possibly draw from that experience. But to kick off the set of things that we wanted to know from you, first of it is that you've spent a fair amount of time in marketing.
Yeah.
And you possibly also have seen marketing evolve. I'm sure when you started, in fact, when we started also, there was nothing called digital marketing per se. And now we have seen a significant part of it. What would you recount as things which have changed significantly in marketing for the better and for the worse?
Okay, that's like several questions in one. So first of all, if I just reflect back, I think marketing's always been evolving. And, as again I come back, I think you should call this the grandfather podcast, because that's stuck in my head now. Ageism. Anyway. So look, I mean, there was a time when everybody said that, satellite TV is the big sort of disruption
Right.
in the world.
Yeah.
Right. In the sense that you only had one channel, and suddenly there are 14, and then there are 100, and then there are 600, and how it's impacting small town customers, the window to the world. So my point being that there's always been something that's sort of changing in the mix that we call marketing.
Sure.
Right? So I think this is just sort of one more in that continuum. I mean, pull back in the 200 years ago, maybe the newspaper was a disruption, and then along came radio, then along came broadcast television, then came satellite television, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
So that's one point. I think everybody just needs to sort of keep in mind, saying this has happened in marketing before,
And it's going to keep happening.
and it will keep happening.
Right.
And that's, I think, one of the things that any marketer should take as a given. If you're sort of, I won't say disappointed, but if you're not able to handle this, then maybe this is not the area for you, because this is something that you need to be very conscious of and deal with it.
Fair.
Right. Now, coming to digital marketing, I think it's sort of again evolved. There are many aspects of, one is it's as a medium, right? So if whatever one used to read on a piece of paper, now you're reading on something which is digital.
Consumption device.
As a consumption device or a watching device, etc. So that's one aspect of going digital.
Sure.
Then there is digital sort of interruption or digital marketing. How you can send messages which are exclusive to that medium, right? Which are tailor-made to stuff that people do on that medium, right? Again, very similar to how it would have evolved when the traditional mediums would have just come out. So imagine the first time somebody took out a newspaper, I'm sure there weren't too many kinds of ads in it. And somebody thought, okay, let's put an ad here. Oh, okay, fine. Then that ad format would have got disrupted. Then somebody put a leaflet inside it. Right? Same thing for television. Like in television, there used to be the spot. Then somebody thought of the idea that, okay, you can have one little L band at the bottom. Right? I remember in 2004, there was a cricket series and there was this big campaign of Pappu Pass Ho Gaya.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, we did a deal with, I think, ESPN. My friend Vijay Koshi will remember this. He came to sell it to me and sell ad spots to me. And then we worked this out. And the whole deal was that every time somebody hit a 4, we said Pappu Pass Ho Gaya in that little strip.
Oh,
Now, that
nice.
was a big innovation. Now I watch IPL and it's sort of all over the place. So my point is that every medium has its sort of, if it is featuring advertising, over time you'll find different ways of the message getting across to your audience in some form of interruption. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Right.
So I think a large part of digital marketing has evolved keeping this thing in mind.
Yeah.
So it is, a lot of this is tactics in my view. I think everybody needs to remember that digital marketing is not the end by itself. It is one of the paths to something that you need to do in impacting your customer. Ultimately, you shouldn't lose sight of that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Narayan, you mentioned that a marketer's got to be ready for this evolution. So how does a marketer's life get disrupted and how can he be ready for the evolution, he or she?
So I'll try and answer the second part of the question, the how, which I am pretty clear about. I think marketers need to, it is in one of your questions, but marketers need to be curious. Okay, you need to remain curious all the time. You need to be curious about, okay, why did this happen? What was the person thinking? How did this happen? Etc. etc. I mean, you just have to keep thinking about the how, about your brand, about how customers react to your brand, for example. So if you don't have this sense of curiosity, then I'm not too sure you're the best fit for marketing. That's my personal sort of rubric, like to say that, you had a question saying, what do you look forward in people? It's not communication skills that comes after. You need to be a curious person. You need to have that bent to say, I want to try and figure out why this has happened. Why has a customer done what he or she has done?
Right.
Right. So I think that's the how bit. Now, look, disruption can sort of happen at, so for example, I'll give you two things that just popped into my head just now. I read a lot about meme marketing. Right now. Okay, somebody's doing meme marketing. It may make sense for that category. You have to think about and be curious about, is it relevant for your category and your customer or not?
Sure.
If it is, please go ahead and do it. If it's not, and I think, again, a lot of marketing is about choices that you make.
Right.
So everybody should have that sort of an antenna up to say no as well. Right? Just because, brand A is doing meme marketing doesn't mean it's relevant for me. Right? And you need to have that, I won't say wisdom, but you need to have the clarity. Yeah, I think that's a good word. I think you need to have the clarity and you need to have the ability to swim against the tide. See, one of the things that happens in marketing is that, it is a very important function, but there's no qualification you require to become a marketer. No, you don't, like, for example, if you want to be a finance person, if
Yeah.
you want to be the CFO of a company,
Sure.
you need to be either a chartered accountant or you need to do an MBA in finance. You need to have studied accounting. You need to have studied this, right?
Sure.
Similarly, if you want to work in manufacturing, then, some form of
Engineering and something you must have
engineering,
studied.
something you need to do. What is the qualification you require for marketing?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I just
Right.
hope my clients aren't listening to this, but yeah.
Well, I'm not saying they're right. But see, and I think that's the problem. The problem is that I think everybody thinks that marketing is easy
Hmm.
Right.
because it doesn't, for example, follow a set of decision rules. It doesn't have laws. And some of these, a lot of these, Byron Sharp and all these guys have tried to sort of
Bring science
Codify.
into this.
yeah, but it's not, I don't think it's gone mainstream.
Sure.
Yeah.
So even now, a large part of marketing is, okay, you need common sense for it. Ye to koi bhi kar dega,
Mhm.
right? And you have a lot of, very senior management will say, oh, what is it? To, let's just say, let me ask to the person on my right, what does he or she think? And it's fine. Do you find that happening when it comes to a financial decision?
Hmm.
Right? I don't think
You
so.
won't.
At least
Yeah.
it will be, conditioned, or you'll have to explain why, you believe a certain, some
There needs
financial.
a rationale
Yeah, exactly.
behind it.
Hmm.
So I think that's one of the problems that marketing sort of
Right.
faces,
Faces.
that it's felt that anyone and everyone can do it. And that's not the case, as I think all of us have figured out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
I hope you agree.
No, I do. I vehemently do.
I compare it usually when somebody asks me, I compare it with any other skill-based sport, for example. What is the qualification you need to become a cricketer?
Right.
You just need to play cricket for long enough so that you will become better than others.
Yes.
Probably in marketing, you might not have very specialized courses which give you codes, but you need to do marketing long enough to start appreciating the
No, I couldn't have said it better, Sudeep. Absolutely. I mean, the longer you sort of do this discipline, and the better you will be at it. And that's like many things, right?
Yeah.
But the key part is that there is a discipline as well.
Right.
There is a method to this. It is not sort of, oh, let me sort of sit back in my shorts on a beach, smoke a cigar, drink a glass of alcohol, and I'll come up with something terribly creative. It doesn't work that way.
Sure.
I think that is really the tip of the output finally. But
Sure.
the discipline that happens prior to that,
Sure.
and the rigor that happens, and the
Right.
data that goes behind it to inform those rather simple insights that come out, is where the magic is, right?
Sure.
And I was just relating it back to the question that you asked, and that's the how will people sort of be prepared for this? The problem is that I think some of these googlies come from all over the place,
Right.
right? And therefore a marketer needs to believe in this. It's almost like belief at a religion level, right?
Hmm.
To say that yes, this is the discipline of marketing, these are the steps, and something that's fashionable and trendy doesn't fit in with this, or does fit in. I mean, again, it's
Right.
open. That's the beauty of this entire this entire discipline and this function.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I know that makes sense.
No, it does.
It does.
Perfect.
And to push it a bit further, Narayan, you now see surfeit of people claiming to be digital marketers, performance marketers, etc. And a lot of the time when we talk to them, they themselves lament the fact that they haven't really gotten an opportunity to understand the brand fundamentals, understand the why, but a lot of work is happening on data.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you think this is leading to possibly a demise of what we used to call as traditional or the right basic fundamentals of marketing?
I see where your question is leading to, but I would just I'll just sort of not reach out there and say that yes, it is dying or something like that. I think it's important to understand what's happening in right now. So again, when I go back, X number of years back, there was always this thing saying there's a lot of data, please examine it. How is it relevant? So I think the presence of data in the field of marketing has all, and the challenges associated with it have always been there.
Yeah.
It's just that the volume has grown, the sources have grown, and sort of our life has changed. So therefore, you're having digital data coming in. I mean, back in the day, there used to be many other forms of data coming in, and this always used to be a challenge. I think the problem once again is that marketing is both a left-brained science or a discipline and a right-brained one. It's not all left brain, it's not all right brain.
Yeah.
Right. So I think seen from that perspective, if you're only going to be, for example, data driven, then it's again going back to the same analogy that you used of, say, exercise, right? If you just keep doing one body part,
Exercise
then
again and again.
something else is not strong enough, right?
Mm.
So in the same way, I think the lament that a lot of performance marketers may actually be saying is that, hey, you know what, I'm continuously sort of exercising this muscle, but what about this? So I'm only doing left brain stuff, but how do I learn, how do I get exposed to the right brain part of it?
Fair.
One thing I keep telling a lot of the marketers, young marketers and advertisers I meet is that a marketer's job is not to be creative. And that's what people get attracted to the most. It's more glamorized,
Yes.
the creative side. I say, you have people, you have a support system to solve for everything.
Yes.
Your job is to basically articulate the problem as clearly as you can. And that's the hard part. And then you see whatever fits in.
Correct. I think the role of a brand person, or let's say a marketing person, let me not say brand, a marketing person should actually see himself or herself as the conductor of an orchestra, right? You don't play any of the instruments yourself, or okay, forget about orchestra. I don't know whether people are musically minded or not, but say you're the football, right? You're the manager or you're the coach.
Right.
You don't actually go and play, in the sense that you're not creating that beautiful move which is going to result in one left-footed top corner shot. You're not that person,
Yeah.
right? You're not playing, but you're able to see things at a sort of a more
Panned out.
level. You're aware of, which player is, maybe getting fatigued,
Right.
and then you make the changes. You tell people you do this, you do that. I mean, you need to see yourself in that. I mean, that's the vision that you need to, ultimately that's the job.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's a nice analogy. Yeah.
I think it's also important to know that, just as a sort of a further nuance to what you said, Sharan, you may not actually do the creative, but you need to have the ability
Judge.
to be able to judge it.
Right.
You should have the ability to speak
Inspire
to an
it.
expert in that field with conviction.
Right.
And that comes with time. And that comes with actually a certain authenticity and genuineness that you need to bring to the table so that the other person will listen to you.
Sure.
Right.
So again, these are not skills that leap off an Excel sheet or, are taught so and so, but this comes out of a little bit of experience. You have to be in those situations to know that this is what is required. You need to have curiosity. If you're not curious, then kuch nahi hoga.
Correct. No, I agree. Completely agree. Any particular, while we dive deeper into rest of your stint, any particular campaign or any particular brand problem that comes to your mind which required the team to work through left-brained data and then possibly come up with something which is left brain as well as right brain as a solution?
I can tell you the failures.
Any of this. Anything
And
that
that's
our
again,
listeners
so
can.
a long time ago in my Cadbury stint, there's this brand called Gems that everybody would have hopefully eaten, and
Yes.
etc. All listeners would know
Gems
Gems.
Sudeep's also worked in Gems.
Yes.
Oh, you
I
worked
have.
on Gems,
Yes.
is it? Okay. So Gems used to be a great brand. It used to, sort of sell all over the country. It used to be very popular among kids, and then they used to grow out and start eating other things, right? So how do you grow this brand, right? So all the research that came in said that, the Gems brand is very strong and, it means a lot, and all the, all that stuff that brand equity is very strong. We all knew that. So then in one of, I think, the workshops, or data showed that it plays, for example, sugar confectionery comes in various flavors, but gems has only one flavor. Right? So then we said, okay, why don't we do flavors in gems? And then as things evolved, the center, which is, sort of brown chocolate. So it said, okay, look, if you use white chocolate, because chocolate has its own flavor, so then we'll be able to add more flavors. You'll get more variety, etc. Very good idea. So then was born this idea of launching fruity gems, right? So again, see, from a left-brain perspective, the
Logically
sugar
correct.
confectionery market is amazingly big. It's 100 times, gems ka size. If you take 5%, aapka kitna bada volume ho jayega. All that we went through. And then I exercised my, not just me, but with my team, we exercised our right brain. And then we leapt off and we called it Jungly Gems. Right? And we launched it. And that was very nice. In Cadbury, we could do such stuff. And we launched it.
Yeah.
And it bombed. It bombed like bombed. And I remember after the bombing, when we were sort of clearing the stock and giving sales promotion budgets and all of that, in one review, finally, I remember the boss at that time was Bharat Puri, and Bharat Puri said, "Hey, kaun jungli jam humne bachche ko jungli bulata hai? Whose idea was this?" So, I mean, look, left, right, it just didn't work. So then we just moved on. In fact, there's a part 2 to that. Then we called it, okay, let's sort of have another go at it, and we called it Fruity Gem. But even that bombed.
Yeah.
Now, the moral from all of this is that whatever data will tell you as the opportunity, etc., you need to blend it with some amount of a sort of a reality check. Now, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. And in this case, the brand couldn't be stretched beyond its core of a chocolate heart, right? You could add some flavors to it, but it couldn't become a fruit flavor, for example, was the takeaway that we had. Now, things could change. Maybe the customer now is a lot more sort of open to it. But I just thought that's an example where, left, right, dono try kar liya, kam nahi gaya.
On paper, everything seemed logical and right. But what happens in the market is so different. And I think that's a great example for us to take away that despite doing everything right, there is no perfect science to get this going.
There isn't. And look, at the end of the day, there has to be a little bit of experimentation that I think needs to be there in the world of marketing and in the world of business.
Right.
Because you'll never have perfect information. And see, that's the other thing about this entire data world.
There is no perfect science to it, in a sense, despite having all the data.
So look, I think that's, at some level, this, there's an abundance of data that's supposedly there, right? But I don't know whether you can predict what's going to happen by looking at the past. Yes,
Right.
You'll get some cues from the past. You'll see some patterns. But ultimately, the future is a bit uncertain, right? So I'm not convinced about the ability of data to tell you everything. Data can lead. So this is the same thing with market research, if you remember. There used to be this thing saying, oh, what should a brand do? What does research say? I mean, research can't tell you what to do. Research can inform you insights, can inform you what happened, etc. And then you have to make a choice. You have to make a decision.
Absolutely.
And that decision could be right. And if you have followed the discipline, and that's my point about marketing as a discipline, if you followed, then you reduce the risk of your having made a wrong decision, right? All of these are information points that will help you not to make a decision. Now, the amount of data that is available, and this is something that I learned in my media stint. Okay, my biggest thing in the media stint was that actually what we were monetizing. Ultimately, it is what you see, say the TV business is monetizing time at its very core, right? And, as an extension, there are now platforms that are monetizing your attention. Right? We're not going there, but if you just stay with monetizing time, right? The value of time is actually decreases over a period of time, in the sense that if I put out a new piece of content, like we're doing this podcast, the first time you put it out, if you put it out live, it'll have the highest value.
Right.
If you put it out as a repeat, it's anybody's guess as to, has it become zero or somewhere between that value and
Some
and
depreciation.
zero, right? And some depreciation. So the fact that you're monetizing time means that your decisions also have a certain value,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So you can't wait for data. You can't wait for research at times,
Sure.
right? For example, in the TV business, say you are telling a story, right? The story is being told by a storyteller. The storyteller is telling his or her story. Now, how do you know whether that is going to be successful or not successful?
Hmm.
By the time you go select customers, go and talk to them, the time for making the decision is over,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So therefore, it's very real time. That's why I said it's very fast moving, because you actually need to make a decision in the day or in that finite moment and then move on
Hmm.
to the next
Hmm.
thing,
Right.
right? So again, there's so much data,
Hmm.
right? But you can keep inventing the fastest supercomputer, but you'll still not be able to get the answer, because it will not be able to tell you, what's going to happen in the future.
Sure.
Right.
And therefore, in media, when you were there, would you call it? All the data, for example, the storyteller's story you put out. Now you receive your TRPs, GRPs, etc. So TVRs. So you understand how it performed. So at least that informs your gut for the next decision.
Correct.
So therefore, your informed gut keeps getting better.
Correct. And then it kicks in what you said, Sudeep, earlier, that amount of time you spend on the category will help you to make better decisions.
Yeah.
So actually, in my view, one of the big things that determines a person's success in business as well as marketing is actually the amount of time that you spend in that business, or over time you'll get better.
I have a question on this, Narayan, and many people talk to me about it, especially when we talk about careers. I know we are changing track a bit, but
Sure.
I thought it is relevant at this stage. So there is time that you spend practicing a discipline like marketing, then time that you spend in a particular category or a business. Both seem to have a significant bearing on how good you become in terms of making decisions later, right? So therefore, now in today's day and age, when people change companies very fast, should they therefore pay significant premium to the discipline that I'll stay in marketing, but I'll possibly experience it in various companies? Or should I build depth in one particular category and company and then...
I would look again, and it's not a cop-out answer. I think it's a mix of both, right? So one thing is that I think we also have to face up to the fact that if you keep doing the same thing, there is a sense of ennui and boredom that comes in, and everybody wants. If when you're thinking of a career, you don't only think of a career in a particular function. You will say, oh, I need to do a stint in sales and marketing, then maybe I can do something else, and that's how careers are built. So you need to be open to that. So again, I wouldn't say that you need to only be in marketing in a category for a donkey's number of years and you'll become better at it. I think you also have to be a little cautious about the sort of sameness and the lack of variety, even if you're in the same company.
Sure.
I think it is something that we all operate in fairly high intense and energetic and very driven sort of workplaces, right?
Yeah.
And therefore continuously doing one thing is a problem. I think it does tax you. So I'm not in favor of only staying in one function for a very long period of time.
Sure.
Having said that, I think definitely on the flip side, the more you do marketing, and when I say that, whether you do it in a company, in a category, or across categories, what you need to be wanting to learn is a framework with which you see the customer brand category interaction. And that's the framework that is transferable. The framework of how to sort of think about this relationship. And of course, it is different in different categories. But once you appreciate that this is the framework and you have the curiosity to dig deeper into it, and be open to truly understanding and listening to what customers say and then basing your decision, then I think more and more variety will add different perspectives to you.
Sure. But your core framework and your discipline remains the same.
And that discipline and that framework comes with time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say you need to invest the that, whether you call it formative, but you need that. Maybe somebody gets it in 12 months. Someone gets it in 18 months. Someone gets it in 24 months. I don't know that. So I'm not defining the time period.
Yeah.
But, there's that famous 10,000 hours. वो हो जाता है 10,000 hours.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
Okay.
That reminds me, when I moved from sales to marketing, and when I call you grandfather, there's more tease you, but there's actually a fond memory that I have. I'm not sure if you recall.
Once you tell me, I'll recall.
I walked into your lavish cabin with a concept for Tang,
Right.
and with your recliner and the sofas. Look
There's
more
a
like
bean bag.
your bean bags. It looked like a living room than an office cabin. But you spent an hour with me, who is just entering marketing, explaining to me how a concept should be. And I'm not sure if marketing leaders today have as much time, or sometimes even the will or the know-how to spend with junior marketers like that. So I'm very grateful for it, because I learned so much that day, and I continue to use it even today. So how do you today train even skip level managers, or what's the leadership style in marketing? How has that evolved?
One, this is something that I like doing a lot, which is to sort of, I believe you need to it's not the length of time, but the intensity of the time that you spend on a topic which can give you the breakthrough. Length can also give you the breakthrough, but if you really spend, sort of laser focused, high intensity time, maybe you'll solve something in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
So that's been my focus. And if I do remember that not just once, but several times I've spent a lot of time with you, Sharan. But I think it was with that objective, or let me spend time to make sure that this person understands what I am trying to sort of, what are my expectations, and also explain why at times. Now, so that's been, I think, I don't know whether it's skip level, but what I like to do is to, when a team is working on, say, a brief, and it could be any brief, there's one person who actually has a task of writing the brief, right? But there are contributions from several people.
Yeah.
Now, this may happen over a period of time, may happen, sort of sequentially, asynchronously, or something like that some people say, right? It happens, मैंने brief भेजा, मैंने किसी से बात किया. Now, it's important that everybody has sort of deploys the same amount of intensity and focus on thinking of the problem. So one of the things that I like to do is to call the people who are writing the brief, and it could be, several levels below as well, into a room and saying, okay, let's have a conversation around this. Let's understand. What's the first stab at your brief? Okay, now you said this. Now interrogate that, sort of, torture test it, and then invite, inputs from other people, and then you get better. You sort of elevate it, so to say. The other thing that I have found is that setting the environment where everyone can speak, what they, and clear their doubts as well, and not be scared to say something stupid. Right? You need to create that environment. And I think, if you're the head of the department, if I'm the head of marketing, it's my responsibility.
Yes.
And the third thing is, I think building this culture requires walking the talk. If I do it, then the people reporting to me, right, will also realize that they have the sanction to do this, right, in their own way. I'm not saying that it needs to be done my way. I mean, my way may be...
It's a culture code.
It's a culture code. So, you signal importance that, okay, listen, I want, this brief needs to have been thought through. And when I say thought through, this is what I mean. Here's how I'm demonstrating it. You do that once, twice, automatically the third time,
they pick it up.
You said you were several levels below. Your manager will say, Acha, wait, this guy, I get what Narayan wants. And, and then, of course, I will increasingly, my thunder and lightning levels will also go up, right? So then you set the expectation.
Yes.
That's one. Second thing is that, and I used to make this statement, I don't know whether you remember, is that you shouldn't be very satisfied with the first or the second output that you get. You should look at it saying that, okay, this is first draft.
Yeah.
And maybe there is opportunity to push it, no matter what the deadline is.
Absolutely.
Right? So you need to have that slight, extent of looking at things with, okay, I think this can get better. Right? And then also be open that when you actually send the brief out to somebody else, and if it's an agency, they'll have a point of view. And this has actually been one of the things that a lot of I feel brand managers who finished their MBA have a problem with. Let me state it out there. All my agency friends, they also have the ability to, and they do, right? That's why we work with them, right? They have the intellectual bandwidth to add value to whatever we do.
Yeah.
Right.
So it can't just be that, okay, मैंने आपको भेज दिया, अभी आप turn around कर दो. अरे, you have a say in the matter.
Right.
Right? And that I think a lot of brand managers often don't leave enough time for.
Sure.
So what will end up happening is that, oh, I have to send the brief out tomorrow. Arey, but where's the time for added sort of inputs, right?
Collaborations.
Yeah.
Collaboration, etc., etc.
Now, I quite like that point you made, and I've taken a mental note of it, of making sure that at least any brief, anything that you're creating, having an environment where you get everybody in, making sure that everybody is putting the same amount of focus on that particular element at the same point in time. Otherwise, that asynchronicity leads to lack somewhere.
Correct.
I
And
quite like that.
increasingly in our lives now, and I think this is my personal hypothesis and may not be a popular one. If I just reflect back, say I've been working for a long period of time. In my first third of my career, and then the next third, and then the current third, it's that old. But if I look at it, the current one, I don't think there were as many distractions that I had to contend with compared to the previous
Could you
second,
go
third,
deeper?
first, third.
Okay.
Oh, there are notifications, there is email to see, there is WhatsApp, there is this, there is that, something or the other.
Right.
Right? So my point is that we're all living in a very distracted world. So let's go back to that brief thing, right? So you've written a brief. So let's see this asynchronous thing. You send it to me. When I am seeing it, right? I may be seeing it in the midst of my morning walk.
Yeah.
Or, I'm doing something else. I'm in between meetings. And you write, hi boss, this is the brief. It needs to go by tomorrow. Please,
Approve
let
it.
me have your...
Please approve it.
No, approve nahi hoga.
Please see
You'll
through
say-
and let me know what you
Correct.
think.
Please take a look, get your feedback, and let me know it has to go tomorrow. So then I'm like, dude, in the midst of I wasn't expecting this. This is not on my calendar. All that happens. So how much time will I actually devote to it?
Sure.
Right. So this is what I mean. I'm not sure whether the number of distractions, and then imagine this, say, this though is, we're all on one side of the table. We're playing for the same team. You send it to your agency. Now, agency teams, the wonderful thing in an agency is that you work on varied problems because you have many clients, many categories.
Correct.
Now, in the midst of it, you want that person to focus 100% on what your brief at your time and revert by your timeline. I think that's what has fundamentally changed in today's times.
Right.
So much of work is happening supposedly electronically. I don't know whether people are able to give that kind of undivided focus to the problem.
Sure.
And so therefore you need to go extra mile. You need to make extra efforts to get everybody together, to focus on things.
I completely agree. And the other benefit of doing that is that it builds ownership at every level, to say all of them end up owning the briefs. It's about it's not a top-down diktat that's coming in.
Yeah.
And you want to play a role in seeing that come to life.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the benefit. Then everybody sort of has a little skin in the game. What I
Nice.
call skin in the game.
Nice.
And this is
I quite like that.
old-fashioned, people getting together. This is, it can happen over a Zoom, but, we all know what happens on Zoom calls.
No, still, if we take the romanticization out of the picture,
Yeah.
even if you are able to get everybody on Zoom together
Correct. That's
and
what I was coming to.
focusing on the same thing,
Exactly.
serves the purpose.
It serves the purpose. So you build that sense of purpose. right? And so again, purpose. This is purpose.
Hmm.
That everybody, please, I value your contribution. I want you to sort of think deeply about this and let me know.
Right.
How do you orchestrate this? This is a
And
skill
also,
and an art.
Narayan, like when you spoke about Gems Fruity and Gems Jungly, after that experience, you would have added couple of more filters in your head, that next time I'm solving a problem, these are some things that I will also think through. For example, that possibly the core of brand Gems is chocolate in the center, so therefore next time I will also think through core of the brand. Sometimes these meetings also allow you to bring everybody on the same table on what are the filters to think through.
That's right.
Everybody
So that's
might have
the frameworks.
yes,
right?
frameworks.
And so, this is the framework that over a period of time and experience, I believe has worked. Now, for people new in the team or new to the category, that's okay. We learned something new, or let's apply this. And then you sort of move forward, right? And sometimes you learn new things. Somebody will come and say, no, in from my previous experience, we used to look at it this way. So why not look at it this way? So you just, again, curiosity. You need to be curious and open to say, okay, I can sort of get inspiration from various places.
You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands. Your hosts are Sudeep Chawla, marketing practitioner, business leader, and educator to advertising and marketing professionals, and Sharavana Raghavan of Vitral Brand Expertise, growth consultants to consumer-facing brands and businesses. For more information, go to cobcast.net. If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by telling your friends and rating us.
People are not writing briefs anymore because everything is digital, everything has to be done yesterday. The agency folks are asked to come up with something that will go viral all the time. And so briefs are not necessarily being written. It's somebody holding it together, or most of the time, it's nobody holding it together, each one holding a different version of it. So this is a question I get asked often by the agency folks. Not just agency, everybody in the budding marketing careers, that how do I hone my skills as a marketer when everything's moving so fast? Yes, I need to be curious, but there is no there's no singularity of thought for me to learn from. What should I do as a marketer?
So look, one is, if I try and think through your question, if you believe that, things are moving very fast, I would say just take a pause. It does not hurt. Okay. Now, for example, I'll go back to wanting something viral is a brief. So what does a brief do? Let's just sort of take pause and come back to answering that question. Writing a brief is not for the sort of virtue of writing a brief. It is so that everybody has a shared understanding to judge what comes out of it.
Right.
Right. That is the value of a brief. It can be whatever it is.
Sure.
Right. So in the same way, I'm saying, if you want something to go viral, that's the brief. Right. So add color to that, add some objectives, and say that, and therefore everybody is on the same page. This is what I want to achieve, but I'm expecting an impact which is viral. Good luck to you to judge that. That is all I'll say. But that's exactly what I mean, that the brief will keep everybody honest.
Sure.
Right.
See, again, what happens is that at a point in time, there is something that, say, from a client side or from the brand side, you desperately want. I want a very viral thing to go out, right? That's what you feel. So aapne brief dal diya. Next day, circumstances could change, right? The category could change, or next month, or whatever it is. Now, how are you to judge whether this is going to go viral or it's not going to go viral?
Yeah.
Now, the brief will help you do that, hopefully. If you can write a brief. That's why I said good luck. I mean, this virality business is, you don't know, it's the good old, you put out an ad, TV ad, you don't know whether, people will take out the meaning that you intended, whether they will like it, etc. And which is the reason why we used to do the testing and the link testing, etc., so that we get a better understanding beforehand.
Sure.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, things have moving at such a pace that you don't have the luxury of going and doing all the link tests, etc. So you're only using judgment. So in fact, I would counter to say that in today's times, having a shared understanding of the brief is even more important.
Sure. Because things are moving fast.
Things are moving fast.
Yeah.
So when you say the shared understanding of the brief, it's to know what the brand stands for so that everybody knows what they need to bring to the table for the brand.
Correct. That is one. Second is, what do you hope to achieve?
Mm.
Like, okay, you want a piece of creative, I presume. You want some stimulus. It could be static, it could be dynamic, whatever it is. What do you hope to achieve with it?
Right.
This is what the brand stands for. These are the do's and the don'ts. Unless you put that down so that everybody has an understanding, you're going to be, I can foresee that you'll forever be, sort of arguing over things.
Yeah.
Unless you say, for example, I mean, just let's think of it hypothetically. You're a brand that believes in, just give me a category. Think of, not a real
Biscuits.
brand, but some category.
Biscuits.
Okay, biscuits, right? Now, you know that the context of the category is a bit of sharing, and it is always lighthearted, right?
Right.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
You hear a story where biscuits are eaten at a funeral,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
You know the category context is wrong.
Correct.
Now, unless you have a shared understanding of this, I think your partner is going to continuously justify why the funeral situation is correct,
Right.
right?
So somebody needs to share the category context.
You need to have a shared understanding. Now, I'm saying whether that happens over a cup of coffee, whether that happens over email, whatever it is. But unless and the onus is on the brand owner to put it down.
Yeah.
आप बताओगे नहीं, so why will the other party, sort of take note of it, is my point.
Correct. So in fact, interestingly, what you're saying is putting a brief might help you get to your right output faster rather than
Absolutely.
going back and forth about it.
Yeah, you'll cut down on a lot of things, and you can always refer back saying, hey, this is what we put down, right?
Nice.
Now, it could also mean that you may change it, right?
Yeah.
And again, these things are not like, completely cast in stone. When I say that is that there are bits of the brief where if you hear something better, and that's happened in my career, you'll say, okay, fine. But at least it's a trigger.
Right.
Yes.
It actually the most, the biggest benefit I feel is that it gives you the conviction to say no to something. Otherwise, when somebody is coming to give you a solution to your problem, just remember they will sell you a range of things. Ultimately, you have to decide. How will you decide? So the power to say no, I think comes from the brief. This is the reason. I may be right, wrong, but hello, my job is this, right?
Sure.
So it helps a lot. I think that's the power of a brief and a shared understanding of it.
Yes. So changing tack, Narayan, could you just give us some examples which could bring about how marketeers would operate in all the different sectors, categories that you worked in, so that our listeners could understand the things that you observe differently in, for example, cigarettes, biscuits, chocolates, then media, and now in auto?
Good question. So I think one is that what I would call what's sort of the role of marketing relevant for each category, right? So in largely, and I'm blocking all FMCGs together, all FMCGs, largely marketing is about, customer acquisition, right? What does that mean? It means you have to go and identify where are you going to get new customers from, how are you going to get them to consume more, the behavior aspects of it. Now that is marketing's sort of job. So if you look at it, you are a little the headlight of the organization, right? That's the term that we used to use because you lead the thinking. Right. And that's how I think broadly it is in most FMCG, where a product is involved. Service is a little different. I don't know. Maybe it's the same, but I haven't thought deeply enough about it. I think then when you come to categories like media, right? There is this aspect of what I would call, what do customers or what do consumers uh, consume, which will inform the product, right? Which is very important, which is the storytelling part of it in media,
Right.
right? But the actual, the what we call the tools of marketing, making advertising or making communication, is serving a certain purpose, right? That by itself may not be a driver for you to find new customers or occasions.
Okay.
So it is an enabler. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Similarly, in auto, like again, there are some fantastic brands, and Bajaj is one of them, and we have many brands which are fairly iconic, etc., etc. At the core of them is there is a product which is designed which serves and meets customer needs better than everybody else. Along with that comes that they are available far and wide. Cost of services, which is very important, is kept low, etc., etc. And this bundle becomes the brand.
Yeah.
So in marketing, you're sort of, while you are overall figuring out what this bundle is, you are actually activating a very small part of the entire brand experience, in my view. In FMCG, and again, coming to chocolate, coming to biscuits, etc., the product is one part, but people often consume the brand because of things outside of the product. I mean, if you look at chocolate, there is no real physiological requirement for you to consume chocolate, right? It's a feeling, it's an emotion.
Yeah.
So that is very fertile territory for you to build brand cues and the brand around it.
Sure.
And then you can do specific things which will amplify it and people will consume you. The avenues for that may be a lot lesser in other categories. So for example, if you're a bank, right? I mean, your need for a bank is going to come when you need to go and take money out of it, or take a loan, or take an asset. By itself, going to a bank is not and with all due apologies to all my banking friends, bankers, the great brands, but I think we need to just objectively say that there's a certain role in a customer's life, and you need to sort of play within the roles and the codes of that.
Right.
Sure.
Right. So I think this is the way in which marketing is different in all these categories. It's not the same tactics which will work.
Okay.
So we knew that on chocolate, if you make advertising that tells a story that is very evocative, largely in the emotional zone, and the emotion being positive and happy, people will notice you, will remember you, and then reach out for one more piece of chocolate. You knew that in Bonvita, we figured out, as you guys know, after a lot of hit and trial, you can keep talking to the pester power of the child, but ultimately the pack of Bonvita or any other product is bought by the mom.
Right.
A lot of benefits by talking to the mom.
Yeah.
And how you talk, etc., then opens up that avenue, right? It's very different from chocolate.
Yes.
So the same tactic's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what I've experienced. And I've experienced, fortunately, not by making mistake, but out of experience that, okay, this is different.
Yes.
Right.
And like you said, in media, the content itself, or in auto, the bike itself or the device itself, is a significant part of consumer experience. And then you create some kind of marketing around it.
Correct.
Yeah? And if I were to put you on a spot and say, for a marketer, out of all the sectors that you've worked in, which one possibly would be the most exciting? What would your answer be?
Most exciting? ये तो unfair question है.
And answer that question not as CMO of Bajaj Auto, but
I would say my most exciting. Okay, let me answer it. See, excitement in my view, there is excitement in if there is excitement to be found in whatever you do. Okay, but I'll tell you my most fulfilling stint. Okay, and I'll qualify that as well. The most fulfilling stint was when I was handling Bonvita.
okay.
That was my most fulfilling. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that I wasn't excited by all the stuff that I did on chocolate, etc., etc. But my most fulfilling thing was on Bonvita. Because I think in Bonvita, we truly changed the discourse of of the way the category communicated, and forget about communication, the way it oriented itself towards customers. It's like there is a warship which is going in one direction, which is the category, and then something made it move. And for me, that was the most fulfilling thing.
Nice. And this is what the Tayari Jeet Ki.
Yeah, the Tayari Jeet Ki thing. Because, the discourse was about, we have 50 vitamins and your child will have this product and will grow 3x taller, etc. These are all, snake oil claims.
Right.
And to go back to the core and say that the reason why a mother, puts 2 spoons of Bonvita into a glass of milk to get back to that, that emotion and to see it work, and then have, pretty much the entire category orient itself is very fulfilling.
Wow.
Nice.
And it still holds water, right? It's still been 15 years now?
Yeah, it's going to be 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
And it still holds.
It still owns. Yeah.
Brilliant. So that.
And in fact, I'll tell you one more anecdote on this. Okay. And you guys have worked in Cadbury. So, Bonvita is number 2, right? The distance with number 1 is vast.
Yes.
Right. We were 15% and Horlicks and GSK was 50%, right?
Yes.
And once that campaign came out, that mother racing one, and I got 2 calls, and I must say that it was very special. One was I got a call from Piyush Pandey, who called to say that I just wanted to say brilliant ad.
Nice.
Okay, that's it. And the second call that I got was from somebody who used to head marketing at GSK, who was a senior of mine from college,
Nice.
Shubhajit Sen.
Shubhajit Sen.
Yeah. So he called up and he said, I wish I had made this ad.
Wow.
Oh, nice. That's a very, very nice compliment.
Yeah.
To her. Yeah.
So, that's why for me, this was the most fulfilling.
Brilliant.
I think it also says that look for fulfillment and not excitement. And fulfillment comes from doing work which possibly helps you alter the category, or helps you possibly get deeper understanding of consumer, and then demonstrate it in some kind of brand work.
That's right. Look, if you work, forget about marketing or etc. If you work in a category, your ultimate sort of ambition should be that you do something which will change the fortunes of your brand or your category or the business, right? And I'm, audio listeners, I'm making 3 levels with my hand. So this is what you aspire to. Now, if all 3 happen, then, it's great.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful example you also gave, Narayan. It takes me back to the question Sudeep asked. To say, if I were to say in FMCG, marketing is the central function, and in other industries, marketing functions more as a support system for whatever the central function. Yeah. In that scenario, who is the champion of the brand experience? Because we say brand is not just built by marketing; it's built by other functions too. So, who defines the brand experience in other categories?
It depends on the sort of continuum on which the brand is experienced. So let's take the case of a bank. I think if you promise a certain thing for you as the brand in the bank, ultimately it's your branch people who will define the experience. So you can write whatever you say is your brand experience. The moment of truth is, for example, when a customer is interacting, I'm assuming branch. It could be digital, it could be whatever it is, telecalling, whatever it is. But I'm just, for the simplicity's sake, saying you have a branch, then the branch people define it.
It's the touch point of the consumer.
Absolutely. It has to come alive at that moment. You call it moment of truth or whatever it is. And this will be different in different categories, right? In automobile, a large part of stuff happens at our dealerships. A lot happens actually post-purchase. Now, this is a wonderful category where actually your brand has a lot of opportunity to appeal to customers post-purchase as well. So that then they go and talk about it. And that's actually the biggest driver for purchase of a brand is what is called word of mouth. So what people say about an automobile, whether it is a motorcycle or whether it is a four-wheeler matters. Now, it matters in varying degrees. We won't get into that. I'll be another podcast. But it matters, right? So just imagine, I mean, you are able to influence that when that person comes to your service center, for example.
Right.
Sure.
So then I would say that is important. Now, who is the holder? Again, it's difficult. I'm hesitating from saying there is one person.
Yeah.
Right.
Because again, it is at times when you grow in scale, then it becomes very complicated. There are so many touch points. How are you going to make sure that this is the brand experience? That's the challenge.
Sure. And hence the shared understanding that is
The
needed.
shared understanding. Keeping it simple is another thing I would say.
Everybody should be able to say, this is what we stand for.
Correct.
And hence this should translate into our actions.
Correct.
Good
I
one.
mean, it has to, you can come up with a nice statement, but then how is that going to be interpreted and understood and put into action by, the last person, the last mile person is also something that's important. And that becomes important in a lot of these categories. FMCG is, look, at the end of the day, an FMCG is a packaged product. I mean, somebody unwraps a piece of chocolate, eats it, and it's over. There is no
Continuous engagement.
feedback or continuous engagement. You're done, right? But there are brands where all of this also matters. Post-consumption matters.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Fair. Let's talk about innovation, Narayan.
Okay.
We spoke about one innovation earlier. Not so happy memories of that.
No, I have wonderful memories. But yes.
So, quite often, from both sides, some of the startups say that, okay, some of the traditional companies already have some spaces defined for them. And hence we need to go and disrupt it.
Right.
And they are not sure how the big companies would respond. And therefore, what should be their moat so that the big companies take time to respond. On the other side, the big companies are continuously looking around to see who is disrupting them next and how should they be responding. And that's a battle that we see playing out now very, very well, especially because digital has now created democratic access to consumers.
Right.
Now, if I were to ask you in your current category, there are a number of incumbents now who are coming from, at least from the EV space. Seems to be buzzing with activity.
That's right.
Now, as a big brand, how should one look at competitors like those? And therefore, how should one prepare their own marketing teams and the organization to respond to such competition?
Yeah. So, talking about the two-wheelers and so the electric disruption is a very, very big disruption. So I just want to, so that everybody has an understanding. It's not just a fuel disruption. Fuel disruptions have happened. Like you've had, say, CNG as a thing in four-wheelers, right?
Yeah.
You have cleaner fuel options, etc. But I think an electric vehicle is fundamentally quite different. I mean, the number of mechanical parts are lesser. It calls for a disruption in the way the product is manufactured, requires, lesser number of parts, therefore slightly different kind of complexity. Service, it has implications across the chain. So that's why it's a true disruption. I'm just sort of, clarifying that.
Sure.
So in that sense, it is a real disruption, right? It is an alternative to the internal combustion engine. It is not an adjacency of the internal combustion engine.
Right.
We are in a very early part of the S-curve, of both in terms of the technology evolving, costs, and the automobile industry goes through this cycle where, there'll be a new technology that will come, there'll be a certain cost profile, but over a period of time, things will
Even out.
Yeah, will even out, etc. So it's a cyclical. It's like a cycle. Okay.
Sure.
So against this backdrop, you have to go back and ask, saying, there'll be different kinds of customers. There'll be customers who are early adopters. Okay. There will be customers who will adopt after a period of time, after a wait and watch, and the choices these people make will be likely be very different. If I'm an early adopter,
Yeah.
right, I am likely to be a lot more open to newer brands that I don't know much about, right? I'll be an information seeker. I'll be technologically savvy. One of the things that we we often say is that it happens with what doctors say, right? आजकल patient आते हैं, they know more about the disease because Google में उन्होंने पढ़ लिया है.
Correct.
The same thing happens a lot of times in automobiles. When the person comes into our dealership, he's already done his search, everything. He's got something in mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
It may be as simple as I talk to somebody who owns this bike and they've told me good things about it, so I'm now coming to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So these are those people who've come, who are in that mindset. So they'll be open to newer and newer things. But I think there'll be a mass adoption phase where it will fall into the codes of what people look forward to in the kinds of brands that they would want to buy, which are, what would you want in an automobile? You'd want that you can be sort of sure about how it's made. Reliability will be a factor.
Yeah.
Right.
After sales service will be a key factor.
Yeah.
Repurchase will be an interesting. Resale will be an important variable for you. When you put all of these together, these are all strengths that an incumbent player will have.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That evening out, that digital evening out, can even out one part of the purchase journey.
Yes.
It cannot even out all aspects of the brand journey.
Correct.
Right.
Wow.
And I think that is the dynamic which will. So there are strengths that incumbent players have, right, which are further on in the brand journey, and there are some which are getting disrupted, which are very much in the in one part of that journey. So a lot of innovation is happening on the product front, which will appeal to a certain set of people.
Right.
Sure.
Right. But there's another set of people who will say ki, but what do I know about this brand? Right. I want a no-fuss brand, for example. I want to feel the fact that a big company is giving me this assurance that they'll take care of whatever comes up. And a lot of people are technology, what I would say, fearing. And when I say fearing, they don't, isn't there like, अरे यार इस पे risk नहीं लेते हैं. See, there's a difference between buying something which you use occasionally and buying something if that is your tool of trade.
Yes.
Right.
If what I put in, if what puts food in my mouth and my family's mouth, I don't know how much risk people will take on that.
Correct.
So again, you got to understand the context in which the category operates.
Sure.
Right.
The brand operates.
And Narayan, so one, you said that it is about, how many people are willing to trust and therefore willing to risk. Second part, I think you also said about the fact that the customer journey in your category is longer.
Yes.
Not just about buying it, you have to service it over a longish period of time, and that's where some of the incumbents will have slightly longer advantage. They should. And therefore, for all the people who are listening to us from, for example, traditional companies or incumbents as we call them, the advice to them possibly will be that look at your customer journey in totality and understand where is the disruption happening as of now, and also evaluate whether you need to therefore strengthen the other pieces.
Yeah, or leverage them. So I think one of the pieces of advice I would have, if you're listening and you're part of, हमारे ज़माने में brick and mortar बोलते थे ना, और आज भी बोलते हैं क्या?
No, we because of this new term called omni-channel, brick and mortar
has come back. But if you remember, in maybe 10 years ago, it was कि यार brick and mortar business is very old fashioned. Because don't worry. Okay, don't get disheartened. You're not going to get disrupted just because somebody is doing something in the digital domain. Okay, I think there is a lot of virtue and there is a lot of value that comes out of being a fairly large size player. I mean, if you're forget about 800-pound gorilla, even if you're a 400-pound gorilla, boss, it's going to matter.
Yeah.
In the jungle, right?
Yeah.
So start from that belief. You may find that there are things on your journey which you can leverage, very decisively that will matter to the customer. It may not be something that you would have focused on right now, but that's up to you to discover.
Your latent strengths.
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
So all is not lost just because somebody comes in. And look, that's business. There'll always be people who will have one, challenger spirit, who will come to, take some business from you.
Yeah.
And that's the competitiveness that exists.
This goes back to the first point we started with, saying disruption is the way of life for a
Disruption
marketer.
is a more fancy word for change.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's it.
somebody, for example, for a long time, there used to be, if you look back in time, there used to be a set of brands in the Indian market and it says, oh, the MNCs are coming. That was disruption. If you were Campa Cola,
Correct.
right, and you saw Coke coming in, right,
would
you may not have
disrupted.
called disruptor, you would have said, Arey, challenger aa gaya na. Right. So it's another competitor.
Exactly.
Right. And so you need to deal with it.
So,
Fair.
talking of disruption,
Yes, sir.
in keeping with the spirit of the season, IPL rights. I want
Yes.
to dig your media brain a little bit.
Yes.
TV and digital. We see one day in the paper, Star is taking out the big ad saying how much the viewership has grown. And then Jio saying we got 4 times that on digital. So what's happening in that space? What's your take on
And Jio going further and saying, why watch something on Idiot Box
Yeah.
when you can watch it on smart devices?
Yeah.
Yeah, so IPL's got 2 different streams now.
Yes.
And what's your take? Is digital going to overtake TV? Is TV going to last? Is there going to be the brick and mortar situation?
So look, my take on this is as follows. I think I don't think TV is going anywhere.
Okay.
I believe that the experience of watching live TV on a large screen, no matter whether it comes through a satellite channel or it comes through, your broadband connection. I mean, watching cricket on a large screen, I think has distinct advantages, depending on the context. Like if you're not at home, okay, and if you're at the airport waiting for your flight, of course, watching it on digital is the only option that you have, right? So now the key question is, remember, whether it's advertisers or whether it is the person who's broadcasting it, the amount and length of time of viewership is very important. Right? If people are going to watch you for 2 minutes and then just check in and check out, that's one kind of behavior. If someone's actually going to take time out and say, okay, today evening 7:30 p.m. I want to watch this match, and is going to make the time and the space for it, then that's, in my view, appointment viewing, and it is television. Right? I don't know whether that's going to go away very soon in a country like India, where cricket is so popular, and IPL is a mix of not just sport but also entertainment. Right? So I believe that TV will stay very relevant as a way to watch IPL. And there will always be, and it's always been the case that people, if you're on the night shift on your job and your stint has started at 5 p.m, you will watch it on your phone. I mean, data nahi chahiye isme to na. But you may not watch for 3 hours. You may watch for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I don't know. And that's some of the data that is not available. Number one. Number two is, I think a lot of times of what you see on the newspaper as ads or whatever are all pushed out, and these are the great wars.
Sales marketing.
Yeah, sales marketing. So look, there is no common currency of viewership as well, in the sense that somebody sells on impressions and somebody then sells on GRPs, and the body that's doing it is not the same. You have Bark giving you one set of statistics, and on the other side, what you see on OTT is put out by the OTT itself.
Right.
I'm not saying they're not telling the truth, but it's not the same.
It's filtered.
Yeah. So how do you sort of judge it? And the last thing is, I don't know whether, and this is from an advertiser's point of view, and this is my point of view. I don't know how much of science it is. I worry about the stickability of what a viewer sort of takes away from an ad on TV versus an ad seen on a small screen. Yeah, I read a study where it showed that, and this was not done in India, it was done somewhere else. They showed that an ad unit served on a big screen had its decay was 4 times lesser than that seen on a small screen.
Wow.
Now that should matter to me as an advertiser.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these studies, they're done
Ad hoc.
few and far between. It's
Yeah.
done in another market. India, I am not aware of anything, but it's my hypothesis, and I'll, there is anyway so much of information that we are sort of bombarded with. It's very difficult to figure out what gets through. But I don't know how much people retain when watching on a small screen, in between tasks, or as a accompaniment viewing while they're doing something, which is all the small screen thing.
Yes.
Right.
Because if you were going to watch a full match on a small screen, then if it's so important to you, you'll plant yourself in front of a big screen.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking from a customer standpoint, right?
Sure.
Right.
So this
Distracted
debate,
viewing. And then-
that's the term I was looking for.
Mm.
I think my hypothesis is that a lot of viewing on small screen is very distracted.
Right.
Not to say that big TV is not distracted. It is also distracted, but I just think it varies. It's less distracted.
Sure. So Narayan, as a marketing leader, we see there is war for talent, especially for marketers, young marketers. While at one end we want people to spend time in the category, time practicing the principle, but on the other hand, all of them have shiny toys in the startup world, where significant amount of equity is promised, a lot of exciting experience is promised, and therefore we see a lot of people making those career choices or thinking about them. What will be your guidance to some of the young ones making those decisions today?
See, I'll answer that on two fronts. So one is, I think I respect if the choices that you make basis your context. Is very difficult to put one entire label to it. So at one level, if there are a set of people who are enamored, maybe it's their context which they want to. They want wealth creation at a very early stage, etc. One can't rule it out, and one shouldn't rule it out. So that's
Sure.
at one level. However, I would say that if you really want to, if your ambition is to be a marketer, somewhere down the line, I think you need to spend some time in a company that has good chops in building brands, or an environment where brands matter. And if that is a startup, great. I'm not making that distinction, but you should say that this is what I want to do, because you learn a lot in the first part of your career. Again, 1/3 of your career. I am where I am because of the choices I made in my first third of my career.
Sure.
And then the second third, and therefore the last third is the way it is, right? So I think there is something to be said about being part of a ecosystem where this learning is enabled or is available. Let me not make the assumption that it is it's just automatically there. If the ecosystem provides for it, great. I think it's a great environment that you should spend some time in, and then play out on your curiosity and your wanting to learn how things work, and then sort of build your frameworks, and then take whatever risk you want to take. That would be my counsel.
So grounding of your principles, fundamentals, etc. is quite critical.
Absolutely. So I think you need to operate from a belief that you need to treat your career as a it's a race. It's not a sprint. It's a long distance. As a marathon, people will get all 26 mile kaun bhagega 4 ghante ke liye. But it is a long distance race, right?
Sure.
So being fast off the blocks is not going. You may not end up. You may actually exhaust yourself.
Sure. Very early.
Exhaust yourself not just in terms of energy, but you may not have enough experiences by the time you reach 10 years down the line, and you want to do something else, or you want to grow. And then one thing is going back to whatever Sudeep you said earlier, right? If you're just exercising one muscle, then how will it help when you want a slightly more rounded ability?
Right.
Sure.
Right, you're only hitting left footers, and then you can't play on the right flank. So many things come up, right? I can only bat, I can't field. Iska matlab kya hai?
Right. Wow. That's awesome. And towards the end of the entire episode, we'd be wrong if we didn't ask you this question. How is AI going to disrupt marketing?
Oh God, AI, artificial intelligence. How is AI going
Given
to...
that the natural kind is lacking anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think human intelligence needs to disrupt marketing first. Forget about artificial intelligence. But look, I don't know enough about this AI, and I haven't myself used this famous thing called ChatGPT or whatever Microsoft has come up with. But I'm reading that it sort of is automating a lot of tasks within the marketing ecosystem. So yeah, it does seem to play a role over there. Maybe it will help in, there's a lot of communication that goes out. Say you need to write a press release, or you need to write an email in English, right? Maybe these will do it much better than a human being will. Certainly, I think. But I still believe it'll need oversight, and that may be the way. It's sort of a mixed thing that happens. So that seems to be the way. But beyond that, I don't know whether it'll be able to make you generate that insight or a communication thought or an ad story that works very well. I have my reservations on it.
Sure.
I think the human intelligence will triumph over artificial intelligence. But yes, a lot of the mundane stuff may there is a case for automation.
Awesome.
Fair.
But I don't know much about it.
No, I think that seems like a fairly balanced view and considered one as well. All of us will discover how it plays out.
Yes.
But it seems like a good one. Yeah.
So we have this on the podcast where we ask one guest to give us a blind question to the next one on the show without knowing who it's going to be.
So we had to ask a question.
Yes. No, we have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
From the last podcast.
What is the question?
Says, how does the understanding of brands influence a company's overall business strategy?
No, I think it helps a lot. I think there will be a lot more customer orientation in a company where there is a belief in brands. You will see it in the kind of product, services, or whatever that company is selling. I think, and lastly, on a financial metric, and this is data, your ability to command a premium if you're selling a brand versus selling a commoditized product or service will be much higher, which will impact on the financials as well. So I think but for me, the first two, which is to say that you'll be if you believe in brands, then you will be oriented towards customers more than a company which just does lip service or token service to it. You should be able to see it in that brand's or that business's behavior.
Perfect.
Okay. Fair. Perfect.
And that justifies the name of a podcast also.
Oh yes. In this wonderful standee
Conversations on the business
and on the
of
mug.
brands. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. Conversations on the business of brands. How are they connected?
Yeah.
Because
Okay, excellent. I think this has been a very, very invigorating session for us. I think we can go on for a couple of hours more, but for the want of time and attention deficit from our listeners, we should possibly call it a day today.
I thought I was coming on the Joe Rogan show. 4 hours we'll talk. Anyway,
We're going to talk offline now.
thank you.
Thank you very much,
guys.
Narayan.
I really loved it and really loved the conversation, and also going back in time and just thinking about some of the things. Some of your questions were really good and very incisive, and I really loved this.
Thank
Thanks for
you,
calling me.
Narayan.
Thank you for the time, man. Thank you so much.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobbcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.